Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today we're building this super cool multi-tool, multifunctional slash shop cart slash workbench slash lumber rack. Oh, it does a whole bunch of things. So I built the back at a slight angle so I can put sheet goods against this, and the nice thing about having that is I don't have to clear off the top of this if I want to move plywood or even drywall around, which is going to come in handy for the new build at the big shop. We've got tons of storage on the bottom, and we've got two drawers where we can put extension cords and just stuff that we don't need to get at very often. I've installed a slide out kind of cutting board on mine, so if I need to splice wires, drill holes, and I don't want to drill on the top of it, I can do it right here. Now, I've had this cheap vise laying around for years, and I definitely wanted a vise on here, so I threw it on here. I also wanted to use this as a maintenancing cart, so if I'm installing electricity, working on any equipment, I have all the tools I need right here in a little hidden compartment underneath the top of the workbench. I've got all my electrical stuff here. I've ordered the tools that are going to go there. They're not here yet, and I've got this nice wide open area with mechanics mat in here, so if I'm working on greasy parts or motors and stuff like that, it can all go right here without making a mess out of my workbench. It's a pretty good sized build, and there's a lot to get to, so let's get started.
So oftentimes when I'm doing a project like this, I'm going to draw a full-scale version of it. In this case, I'm drawing the side profile of the shop cart. Now, what this does for me is it gives me all the angles that I'm going to need throughout the build, and I can pull measurements right off of this drawing. So I'm careful to draw it pretty accurately. I'm grabbing my bevel square, and I'm going to use that to lay out a couple of pieces, and I'm going to be very careful about how I cut to the line on that to make sure my angles are right. And I'm going to use these two pieces as gauges throughout the build. So I kind of cut a big one and a small one. The small one I can use on the table saw to set the angle up on the table saw, and the big one I can use to quickly find angles on the project itself. Now once I have those angles, I can start cutting out the parts for the project. Now on the angled parts that are vertical, and I don't know the exact height of them, I'll cut them a little large, put them on the project where they're going to go, and then mark the height, and then take it back over to the table saw and carefully sneak up to the line, and that gives me the proper height, or width in this case. While I'm finishing up the base for this project, I want to talk to you a little bit about my Toolmasters Association and the new Toolmasters website. Big hats off to the boys over at Devobal Technologies for all their hard work. They've created one beast of a site. It kind of works like a social media platform, if you want to think about it that way, where you can follow other members, comment on their projects, share your own projects. You can even private message other members. Now, one of the big benefits of Toolmasters is the tool discounts. We have vendors that we work with that give anywhere from 10% or special deals on products that we use every day. In fact, a lot of the products I'm using in today's video all came from vendors in the Toolmasters Association. The next big benefit is my plans. All the plans I put out, SketchUp files, everything I do is available as part of that membership, no extra charge. So that's a big value in and of itself. So if you enjoy what I do and want to help support me, please consider becoming a Toolmasters member. You get great discounts on tools, get access to all my plans, SketchUp files, and exclusive content at no extra charge, and it's just a great community. There's a lot of really good folks over there, and we have a great time. Okay, back to the build. So now I'm installing the center divider in the base that's going to hold the two drawers apart. Real quick, I get asked about this particular tool a lot. This is a flush mount countersink from Make It Snappy Tools. It just lets you set the depth of your countersink so you don't go beyond that, and it doesn't mar up your material. It's also available through BP Way in the Toolmasters Association, so you can get it at a discount. Now once the center divider is installed, I'm going to install the top of the bench, and then I'm going to start working on the legs. For the legs of this build, I'm just using 4x4 construction grade material, but I'm going to plane it down to 3 inches. Now before I do that, I'm going to trim off the sides of it before I go over to the planer. It just takes less time to use the saw to chop off a little bit of material than it does to run it through the planer multiple times. With the legs all milled down to size, I cut the front legs to their finished height. Now the back legs I just cut the angle on, and then I'm going to use a front leg to mark out the height on that so I don't have to try and do any crazy math. Then I'll back to the saw and chop that off. So the next step I'm doing here is cutting out a section or a half lap to slide over the plywood. Now you actually could skip this step in the build if you weren't concerned with it sitting flush with the sides of the plywood. I'm going to take multiple passes on the table saw to remove that excess material and then clean it up with the chisel. My homemade pneumatic bench vise works really good for clamping these down while I clean them up with the chisel. Now if you haven't seen the build for the homemade pneumatic bench vise, I'll put a link at the end of the video. To install the legs, I am adding glue to all the surfaces that touch wood. I'm going to clamp them for a few minutes and then I'm going to add screws, and once that is set I will flip it over, drill a hole through the bottom and add screws into the base of the leg. Before continuing on to the top, I want to add the wheels to the bottom. These wheels actually lock from swiveling and lock from turning, but because I'm only going into 3/4 inch plywood and side plywood, I am using smaller screws and a washer around the head to hold that in place. Now that's going to work fine for the sides and front where I have plywood on its side, but on the section where the plywood is on the flat, I only have 3/4 inch to screw from, so I'm using my Izzy skirt washers with a 1-inch screw in both sides. Now before anybody says that's not strong enough, shut up, yes it is. I'm only going to be using this on flat surfaces in my shop. I don't have to worry about that not being strong enough. So off camera I built the top for this, and this just sits right on top of the legs, and I'm going to attach it by running 4 screws through the plywood into each of the legs. Also off camera, I added a back to this tray so I can attach a lid to it. Now before I put the lid on though, I want to add the mechanics mat to it. This way if I'm working on anything greasy or an engine, I don't have to worry about the wood getting all gunked up. To attach the mat down, I'm using speed tape. This is a double-sided tape that is very strong. Now once I had the mat laid in place, I just used my utility knife to trim up the edges. Now because I'm going to use this to work on a lot of motors and equipment and electrical stuff, I want to protect the edges of the plywood from getting banged up. And to do that, I'm just using a peel and stick fast edge, and this stuff works great and is super durable. Once I had the fast edge installed, I went ahead and put the top in place. Now I'm attaching this with a piano hinge. Now piano hinges can be a little bit tricky to install, so here's a quick tip or trick to do it. I use a little 2P10 and activator, and that glues it right in position very rapidly. And then I'm going to use a center finding punch to punch a hole right in the center, and that keeps your screw from going askew. It just makes it a lot easier to install piano hinges and quite a bit faster. So next up I need to add a band around the side of this, and for that I'm just using some blue pine that I had in the shop and just going to tack it in place with some nails while the glue dries. Next I need to have a way to keep this thing open while I'm using the tool node. So I drilled a 1/2-inch hole through both the edging and through the tray, cleaned it up with a countersink, and I can run a 1/2-inch dowel in there to hold it open. I did this on both sides, of course. Last up, I need to organize this thing, and my favorite of all time is Kaizen foam. Really like it because I can close the lid on this, and if I cut my tool holes right, it'll keep them snug enough to keep them in place while the lid is closed. Now I'm using what's called sandwich foam. It has a black exterior and a white interior, so when you cut out the holes for the tools, there's a real stark contrast, so it's real easy to visually keep track of what's put away and what's not. I'm using the Kaizen foam inserts toolkit for this, and I gotta tell you, it makes life really, really nice when you're doing the Kaizen foam inserts, and I do a lot of it, so it made sense to have the toolkit. I want to mention, my friend owns Kaizen Inserts, and he does a lot of really cool products. He's also made the sandwich foam available for a discount. So if you are interested in this and you don't want to join Toolmasters, which has a discount all the time, you can use the discount code Izzy Sandwich, and I'll put a link in the description box below to Kaizen Foam Inserts to get a discount on some Kaizen foam. I'm starting to sound like a used car salesman. Sorry, I don't mean to be. To mount the Kaizen foam to the tool cart itself, I'm just adding some screws through the corner braces of the frame, and then I'm going to use some spray adhesive on both the plywood and the foam, and that's plenty strong to hold this in place. I'm just going to give it a quick test to make sure that the tools will stay in place, so I'm going to take the lid off, slam it a couple of times, and see what happens. Now the only thing that looked like it wanted to come out of place was the large pliers, so I'm going to put a magnet behind there to give it just a little bit extra holding strength. And that's that.
Excited about having this project done. We're about to get a whole lot of use out of it. As we speak, we're remodeling a big shop right out back here, and we're just about ready to run all the electrical work. So this is going to come in real handy for that. I will mention there are build plans for this project down in the description box below, so if you're interested in building one for yourself, you can find those down there. Also, if you want to become a Toolmasters member, those plans would be included in your membership. And for a limited time, I think for the next 10 days or so, we're offering a discount on the first year's membership for Toolmasters. Obviously, no pressure. If that's something you guys are comfortable doing, please check it out. If not, I'll still keep making videos. I certainly do appreciate you guys watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. And remember, when you do, hit that bell notification so you do get notified when we have new build videos coming up. We'll talk to you guys later.